Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I have another watercolor fun video for you. I've pulled out the old Blushing Magnolia stamp set, stamped one of the floral cluster and a sentiment using Obsidian Pigment Ink on watercolor cardstock, and I have embossed that with crystal clear embossing powder. That gives me a nice, shiny, firm, bold outline. I am going to be playing with the Deep Muse Watercolor Compacts, the new release, which is a collaboration between Altenew and the Mint Gardener. In my previous video this month, you saw me playing with the Moody Brights, and in this video, I decided to show you the second color palette, the Deep Muse. Now, I have stamped this on the regular watercolor cold press cardstock from Altenew, the loose sheets that come in 5x7. I tend to use those mostly. And as for the brushes, I'm using the fine watercolor brushes. I am just doing a wet on wet technique to begin with, gently adding layers, slowly building layers, and gradually then going in with a wet on dry technique to add flicks and details. So instead of talking, I am going to leave you all with a little music to just enjoy the watercolor process. Before that, I'd also like to remind you that this is a part of Altenew's Instagram hop, and I just thought it would be good to share the process video with you all. So do hop along on Instagram to enter the fabulous giveaway and be inspired by the two new watercolor releases. All the details are in the description box below. Now with the image watercolored, I use the coordinated die to die cut my sentiment and the floral cluster. Pulled out the Magnolia Dreams 3D embossing folder and I have embossed this on the same watercolor cardstock. It's slightly smaller than an A2 size. It's about 4 inches by 5 and a quarter inches. I am just playing around to see where I like my floral cluster, and once I have that in place, I've just adhered instant dimension foam tape, and without gluing it down to the background, I am going to start painting the background. So I'm not leaving it white, I am going to tint it. And for that, I already have the yellow and the green on my palette, so I'm just moistening that. And I mix in the umber with the yellow as well as the olive green on top there to create this new greenish, yellowish, brownish blend. So it gives me a lighter tone from the bottom of my palette till the top, which is a little more darker. And just holding that image in place now with my brush, I start dabbing the color and picking more water to make the color flow around and make sure that the pigment or the paint is darker around the entire floral cluster, and as it moves to the edges of the panel it becomes lighter than what it is around the floral cluster. So as I'm doing this, you will notice that I stop at a given point. However, off camera, I went back in with a little more pigment to darken it simply because this is watercolor painting and I wanted to let it naturally dry. Instead of using a heat tool, I wanted the first layer to completely dry before I built in and added a second layer of the paint. And that's a tip that I highly recommend. I've mentioned this in my previous video and I'm going to repeat it. Make sure to work layer by layer, enjoying the watercoloring process. Don't rush this process simply because adding too much layer, adding too much pigment might lead to tearing up the paper and not getting a good result or a result that you expect. Here you notice I bring back my sentiment and tint that as well. Instead of having a stark white for the sentiment, I am just going in with that paint and tinting that to match my background. So now that I have that colored, I pick a little green, diluting it, and I add splatter with that as well as the yellow to bring in a little bit of the grunge to my background with the splatters. The card itself, I think, plays in the vintage warm tones, and I'm really loving the way that looks. So once I have that splatter in place, I have also gone ahead and splattered with white ink. Once the panel is dry, I'm using Enchanted Gold pigment ink directly on my embossed panel. So I am running it across the edges of the card panel as well as the embossed detail just to add a little touch of golden warmth to the magnolias in the background. And I think these perfectly pair with the magnolia in the foreground. I'm so sorry. I only realized when I was getting the links that this particular embossing folder is out of stock, but it is such a pretty one. I highly recommend for you to click the notify me button in case you wish to get one. Now here I have a piece of green cardstock and that's A2, that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm using instant dimension foam tape to mount my watercolor card panel and then adhere my floral cluster that already had the instant dimension foam tape on it. This just brings in more depth and dimension to my simple card. Again, adding a little piece of foam tape to the sentiment and adhering that down. And for a finishing touch, I'm bringing in earth tones enamel dots. Now, this is more of a recent color family that's been released, and I thought the enamel dots perfectly pair with the vintage vibe of the card itself. So, picking a variety of sizes, I'm just going in with my craft knife and adhering the enamel dots for that finishing touch. I really hope that this video today has inspired you to play along and get your watercolors out, whatever set that may be, or to buy the new watercolor palettes, whatever that may be. I really hope that you enjoy creating your next project. Keep shining that light and do share your creations tagging me on Instagram. Thank you for watching, and until the next time, take care and bye bye.